I'd like to thank Panasonic for sponsoring this video. Do you have an old unfinished project in the back of your closet? Did you stall at the beginning, or did you stall when it was half done? Did you stretch your skills too far, or did you find it too fussy? We can stall for many reasons. And for most old projects, it takes a lot of mental energy to get back on track and take those steps forward so you have some momentum to get the quilt completed. I have one of those UFOs and I am determined to get it over the finish line. So stick with me and I'll show you how I did it. Hi there, I'm Karen Brown of Just Get It Done Quilts. I give you tips, tricks, and strategies to help you make the quilt that you want to make. And if you like what you see, please click that subscribe button. I have a project that has been on the UFO list every year since I started making UFO lists. It's a pattern called Hazel Nutt by Laura Heine, who is famous for teaching collage quilts. Back in 2017, I purchased a kit at Quilt Market in Houston. Seemed a good idea at the time as it was all raw edge applique. That means no piecing. So it'd be fast and easy, right? Well, today it's 2025, which means I'm in the 8th year with this project, and I am determined to finally finish it and remove it from the UFO list. You could say that this is the quilt that started my YouTube channel, as back on February 3rd, 2018, I posted my very first video to social media of me tracing with a Sharpie the outlines of the pattern onto one large piece of interfacing. This would be the foundation that the collage would lie on. It garnered 23 likes and 400 people saw it. I was just giddy with excitement. The second step in prepping this project was fusing all the fabrics to Steam a Seam Light. I had purchased a kit, which meant I had all the necessary fabrics, so this step was pretty straightforward. From this, most of the fabrics would be cut into strips, but others had some very interesting motifs that you would cut around. So, encouraged by the results of my first video, I filmed this step too. And this time I set up an account on YouTube. And you can still find it if you scroll all the way down to the beginning of my channel. I was making cutouts of all sorts of different objects which would be used in this project. And the pet that you see is not Mando, but my first dog, Holly. I can't quite remember why I didn't continue with this project, but it took up so much storage space, it was always on my radar. Back in January of 2023, when I made my new cutting island here at the studio space, this was the first project that I moved here, as I knew that this collage needed as much space as possible to spread out to. When I came back from my Panama Canal cruise, I had just finished making my maple and eucalyptus project and had no immediate quilts on the go. So I cleaned up my space and pulled everything out. First, I got out that big piece of interface that I had traced the pattern on and laid it flat. I made piles of fabric, I checked out what I had cut, I read the pattern, and just tried to summon up the energy to dive in. Unfortunately, it was only after I brought everything out and sorted it that I realized not only did this project need physical space, it also needed mental space. And I just didn't have it. I was dealing with some really severe pain in my jaw. My daughter was getting married in a couple of weeks. Plus there was some other stuff going on behind the scenes. And after 3 weeks of it lying on my cutting board, I packed up everything and shoved it into one of the cubbies for another day. So last May, I was in a good place mentally. So I decided it was time to bring it out again and get it done. I pulled out all the hazelnut trays and the piles, and I have my usual shock that I am not as far along as I think I am. Though I have done most of the prep work, the applique process has really not started. I have placed a couple of pieces of background fabric, but that hardly counts. And as the days pass without me putting even one new piece of fabric on that foundation, I am really regretting not taking a class on this technique, because I'm sure with an instructor to support me, this next step would not feel so hard. One excuse I have is I want my squirrel to be more teal than pink. So I bring in some extra fabric, fuse it, and then cut it into strips and add it to the pile. Then I second guess if it really looks like a squirrel. And I spend a couple of days researching squirrel species and Googling squirrel anatomy before I finally feel okay about the pattern. Then I have to organize all my fabrics and cut some more into strips. I find some more motif and feel the need to cut out some more. But finally, after 2 weeks of overthinking, I talked it through with a friend. And after weighing all the pluses and minuses, I finally feel enough energy to move forward. And if I make mistakes on this project, so be it. Let me explain the technique. I have this background outline traced. I take one of my fused strips of fabric and I pull back the paper on the steam-a-seam, then trace the boundary on the inside of the paper with a Sharpie. Then I fold the paper back and you can see the lines through the paper. And I cut along these lines. Then I pull the paper right off and put it in place. Now the reason that we use steam-a-seam light instead of another fusible like FlexiFuse is that when you peel back off the fabric, there's a little bit of tackiness so the fabric stays in place. At least there should be. I fused these fabrics 7 years ago, so some are now less than ideal. These pieces that I'm putting down first are in the background and strips will be layered over them. The idea is to fill the space with color, but use value to add shape and shadow. Now, I'm so uncomfortable making a decision of what goes where, I am following the pictures exactly. It takes me a few days before I begin to relax and use my own interpretation of what goes where, and what shapes to cut, and what motifs look best. And bit by bit, working it section by section, it begins to fill out. But unfortunately, just as I was feeling my groove, I have to stop and pack it all up. Because I need the space. I have 3 big projects that are time sensitive that need the long arm. I receive a lot of questions about my cordless Panasonic irons. Truly, it is one of my favorite tools, and I was so happy when Panasonic offered to sponsor this video. You can see immediately that it's different from other irons as it comes in 2 pieces. The base is connected through power through this retractable cord. And with use, I have found this to be a great feature because it removes a tripping hazard, because I only use the length that I need. And it packs away neatly as I move it from place to place. And because the iron is a separate piece, I can iron in so many more places in my home because I'm no longer tethered to an electrical outlet. So one of the first things that you will notice about the iron is that it's light. We all think we need to grind the iron into our fabric to get that press. But now I realize I can let go of that death grip and let the iron do all the work. It also makes it easier to share the work with my less dominant hand. So there's less shoulder pain, there's less hand pain. The water reservoir is easy to take out to fill with water, so I don't need to worry about water getting on my electronics. And not only can you use the steam horizontally, you can also use it vertically. At home, I use this model, the NIQL1000, which is made for quilters, because at home is where I piece my blocks and assemble them. Here at the studio, I mostly use the NIWL600. I'm mostly pressing large pieces of backing. This has a 30-minute shut-off timer, This has a 10-minute shut-off timer. This one has a point to get into those small areas that you need when you're piecing. This one just has a soft point. On the quilter's model, the cord comes out from here, and on this model, it comes out from the front. Both are retractable. If you are looking for a forever iron, be sure to check out the Panasonic cordless iron. I'll leave a link in the description below so you can grab one of your own. Honestly, once you go cordless, you're never going back. So it was last June when I packed it all up, and I was very determined that I was going to get this quilt done so that it wouldn't get on my 2025 UFO list. I was sure it was only going to take me 2 days. So I pull it all out, and surprise, surprise, I still haven't done as much as I think I have. Some pieces also have become dislodged, and I had to figure out what went where. And all that confidence that I had before was gone. So I was back to looking at that photo and following it piece by piece. And honestly, it wasn't that easy for me. I was committed to working on it 4 hours every day, but I found when I got home, my right brain was totally fried. Many times I gave thanks that I had bought the kit, as there was no way I could have made it this far if I had had to pull the fabrics from my stash. After I filled in the border background and I finished the tail, I was feeling so much better and I knew I could stay the course. There were still some challenges ahead. The arm was particularly tricky, and I was running out of certain tones, so I had to supplement with more from my own stash.
Now the main part of the squirrel is done, but I just need to add some flower motifs to the ground at the bottom.
Now it may look like it's done, but the final step is to fuse all the layers together.
While the iron is heating up to its highest setting, I take a lint brush and sweep over the top to remove any stray threads and fabric crumbs. Then I place a wool mat underneath the top to protect my countertop and a silicone applique mat on top to prevent any fusible adhering to the faceplate of my iron. And it takes a good 5 to 10 second press of heat to fuse all the layers together. And then I work my way around the top till everything is fused. And yes, it's just as boring as it looks.
Now I did find the next day when I came in, some of the pieces had curled up. So I repeated that whole process and I haven't had a problem since. And I am finally done. And I can't believe how good it looks. When I mount it on the wall, I like it even more.
This is kind of like childbirth. Now that I'm looking at it and can see it in all its glory, I have forgotten all the trials and difficulties that I had making this.
Doing difficult things is different for every one of us. And let's face it, nobody really likes being a beginner. But I'm very glad after all that effort, I have something to be proud of. And I can finally strike Hazel Nutt off my UFO list. Now there are several ways that I can mount and finish it. I think I will load it on my long arm for some straight line quilting, and I'll use a lighter weight thread. My intention is to mount it on a wooden frame. But what do you suggest? How would you finish it? Please let me know in the comments below. This is my number 3 out of my oldest UFOs, which means that there's a video of number 1 and number 2. And if you're interested in those, I'll leave a playlist here. If you are trapped into a spiral of overthinking, I'll leave a link to that playlist as well. Take care, and I'll see you next time.